December 23, 1891. Spokane Daily Chronicle, Spokane, Washington. The Magic Mistletoe. The mistletoe hung in the castle hall, and the holly branch shone on the red oak wall, and the baron's retainers were blithe and gay, keeping their Christmas holiday. Thomas Haynes Bailey. The old and beautiful custom of decking our churches and homes at the Christmas season with evergreens is derived from ancient heathen practices. It is only perpetuating an observance of the old British Druids, whose belief it was that kindly sylvan spirits took up their abode in these bits of living green and remained in and near them, untouched and unharmed by the nipping frosts of winter, until a milder season had returned and renewed the foliage of their summer homes. The Druids regarded the oak as a sacred tree, it being set apart as the most favored habitation of the spirits they worshipped. They built their altars in oak groves, and in their shadows performed most of their sacrifices. No religious ceremony was entered upon by them without wearing a garland of its leaves. As the mistletoe grew so rarely on the oak, it received from them the same homage as the tree itself. The ceremony of cutting the mistletoe from the oak was made the occasion of a great religious festival called Yuletide, taking place early in March in each year, and was performed by the arch-druid himself. Dressed in flowing white robes, these pagan priests marched in procession to the oak groves. They led 2 white bulls to the tree selected and tied them to it by their horns. Then the archdruid mounted the tree, and with a knife of pure gold separated the mistletoe from the parent tree. It was received in a white sagum or cloth made of wool. This done, the bulls were sacrificed, and the mistletoe, which they called Gael, All-Heal, was laid on their altars, and they then proceeded to further observances and feastings. If a portion of the mistletoe but touched the ground, it was an omen of misfortune to the land. When the bulls were sacrificed and the feasting was over, the mistletoe was removed from the altars, dipped in cold water, and distributed among the people, who cherished it as an antidote against poison and a protection against witchcraft. Although in truth it possesses no medical virtue, to the leaves and berries of the mistletoe were once ascribed various curing properties. The old herbalist Jared, writing in 1663, says, "Daily experience shows this plant to have no malign, nor poisonous, but rather a contrary faculty, being frequently used in medicines against the epilepsy. If it be used in outward application, it draweth humours from the deepest part of the body, spreading and dispersing them abroad, and digesting them. It hath been most credibly reported with me that a few of the berries of the mistletoe, bruised and strained into ale and drunken, hath presently and forthwith rid a grievous and sore stitch. There was an old superstition that it was unlucky to fell an oak on which the mistletoe grew, and many legends detail the ills that have befallen those who heeded them not. The author of Magna Britannia describes a great wood belonging to the Archbishop of the Hundred of Croyland, said to have consisted wholly of oaks. Among them was one that bore mistletoe. Some persons were so hardy as to cut it off for the gain of selling it to the apothecaries of London, leaving a branch of it to sprout again. But they proved unfortunate, for one of them fell lame and others lost an eye. Later, a man ventured to cut down the branch which had been left, notwithstanding he had been warned against it. Soon after, he broke a leg. The Earl of Winchelsea, having felled a curious grove of oaks, soon after found his countess dead in bed, and his oldest son was killed by a cannonball. Among the mistletoe traditions is that of the Holstein peasants, who call it the spectre's branch, inasmuch as they believe that the mistletoe not only renders spirits visible to human sight, but will compel them to speak at command. It is looked upon, too, as a sure talisman of success in the chase, and a most infallible specific for a green wound. Christie, in his Enquiry into the Ancient Greek Games, supposed to have been invented by Palamedes, speaks of the respect the northern nations entertained for the mistletoe, and of the Celts and Goths being distinct in their equal veneration of it. He also adds that we find the allusions of Virgil, who compared the golden bough of Inferno to the mistletoe, and the use of this plant was not unknown in the religious ceremonies of the ancients, particularly the Greeks, of whose poets he was the acknowledged imitator. A quaint tradition is given us by a Mrs. Williams in the Gentleman's Magazine of February 1791. She says, "The Gael mistletoe, a magical shrub, appeared to be the forbidden tree in the middle of Eden. For in the Edda, the mistletoe is said to have caused Baldur's death, though he perished through blindness and a woman." In the Druidical festivities, the mistletoe was invested with a peculiarly hallowed character. They regarded it as an emblem of love and believed it typified the beneficent feelings of their gods toward mankind. Later, there was less formality in culling the mistletoe from the oak. Instead of gold knives, upright hatchets of brass called celts were used. Many of these instruments are found all over the British Isles. Stukely, in his Medallic History, tells us the custom is still preserved, and lately at York, on the eve of Christmas Day, they carry mistletoe to the high altar of the cathedral and proclaim a public and universal liberty, pardon and freedom to all sorts of inferior and even wicked people at the gates of the city toward the four quarters of heaven. It is a parasite, gray in color and of fine thread-like leaves, deriving its nourishment from the living tissue of the tree on which it grows, and from which it seems to spring, as if it were one of its own branches. The berries are about the size of currants, ivory white, transparent, and full of very viscid juice, which serves to attach the seeds to branches, where they take root and generate. The root penetrates the bark, between the inner bark and the soft wood, where the sap is most abundant, and as the tree advances in age, it becomes embedded in the solid wood, absorbing the ascending and returning sap and preventing its circulation. There, the parasite flourishes until the tree itself decays, which may account for the way Shakespeare alludes to it in Titus Andronicus, where Tamora says that Basanius and Lavinia have "ticed me hither to this place, a barren, detested vale, you see it is, the trees, though summer, yet forlorn and less, overcome with moss and baneful mistletoe." It symbolizes pardon. Here certainly appears a mysterious thread running from paganism through semi-paganism to Christianity, for Christ came proclaiming spiritual freedom and pardon, even to the lowest and most wicked. Although mistletoe has been mentioned among the evergreens used to decorate churches, it is asserted by an old writer that it never entered those sacred edifices, but by mistake and ignorance, because it was the heathenish or profane plant of much distinction in the pagan rites of Druidism. It is generally supposed that it grows exclusively on the oak tree, but this is a mistake. It is found on the oak only in rare instances, while it grows in profusion on the apple, pear, hawthorn, sycamore, poplar, locust, and fir trees. But it is that which grows on the oak which is most famous in English history. Traces of the ancient regard for it still exists in some old German and English customs, which we inherit from the old Druidical association of the mistletoe with love. Today it is the emblem of the kiss. It was, for a time, consigned to the kitchen, for plebeian lovers to plight their troth beneath, but as kisses know not condition or creed, the place of honor in parlor, drawing room, and hall was shortly accorded it, and this it still holds. As a warning to all fair damsels who do not indulge in that pastime, they should take note that it is said, the maiden who is not kissed under the mistletoe at Christmas will not marry for a 12-month. Whatever maiden chances to stand under it, the young man present either has the right, or claims one, of saluting her on the lips. After exacting the penalty, he plucks off a berry at each kiss and hands it to her as a peace offering. Then, to be strictly correct, the young lady must throw the berry on the burning Yule log and decide by the time it takes in cracking her luck during the ensuing year.